ladies and gentlemen. This is no names, no identities. It's just enough to know that I'm a friend. I'm coming to you now from a secret and undisclosed location. Try as you might, you may never know who I am or where I am. It's a complete and utter secret. I'm coming to you today on Wednesday of Holy Week, often referred to as Holy Wednesday, or Holy and Great Wednesday, or Spy Wednesday. So named because this is the day of Holy Week in which our Lord Jesus Christ was betrayed by Judas Iscariot. Judas snuck off and engaged with the religious leaders of his day and betrayed our Lord. I'm here to talk with you today about that, and well, even though you may not recognize me, the same way people never seem to recognize Superman when he's Clark Kent. You may not know who I am, but it's enough to know I'm here to help you. Well, I suppose it doesn't matter really who I am. I know it's a shocker, but it's your pastor, Michael Lawson. Well, I suppose it doesn't really matter what happens to me should the enemies of Jesus find me. What matters is that you hear the story of Judas Iscariot. Do you remember how on Monday of this week we talked about how St. Mark in his gospel has a tendency to take a Bible story and sort of cut it in half and insert another story into the middle, like a little gospel sandwich. It's called, again, intercalation, where he takes the stories and sort of jumbles them. And Mark loves to do this, and he loves to take these two stories and sort of play them against each other. And in Mark chapter 14, we come into contact with him doing this yet again. It starts in verse 1, and it says, "Now the feast of the Passover and the feast of the unleavened bread were the only 2 days away, and the chief priests and the teachers of the law were looking for some sly way to arrest Jesus and kill him. But not during the feast, they said, or the people may riot." You note that yet again, their concern is that the people are against them. And that's a very important notion. You know, in the days of anti-Semitism, we tended to paint the Jewish and the Hebrew people with a broad brush and say, oh yes, these are the people who killed our Lord Jesus. And it actually gave a lot of groundwork to people who were white supremacists. They built up this notion that all the Jewish people were against Jesus, but it doesn't stand up to history, does it? It's just another excuse to hate. And in these days of Holy Week, we must remember Jesus' gospel of love. We must remember that Jesus was very popular among the people. That the people, remember, just on Sunday, were lauding him and welcoming him into the city. That Jesus was very popular among the people. People came from miles to see Jesus, to see his miracles, to listen to his teaching. I mean, if you just think about the feeding of the 5,000, that is 5,000 people making the effort to come and to stay with Jesus all day long, to the point that they're hungry and that Jesus has to feed them because there are so many. And isn't that an incredible thing? To be here in this moment and to recognize the fact that Jesus was so insanely popular that the religious leaders of his day felt like he was some kind of competition. While he was in Bethany, reclining at the table in the home of a man known as Simon the leper, a woman came with an alabaster jar of expensive perfume made of pure nard. She broke the jar and poured the perfume on his head. Some of those present were saying indignantly to one another, "Why this waste of perfume? It could have been sold for a year's wages and the money given to the poor." And they rebuked her harshly. "Leave her alone," said Jesus. "Why are you bothering her? She has done a beautiful thing to me. The poor you will always have with you, and you can help them any time you want, but you will not always have me." She did what she could. She poured perfume on my body beforehand to prepare for my burial. I tell you the truth, wherever the gospel is preached throughout the world, whatever she has done will also be told in memory of her. And then Judas Iscariot, one of the 12, went to the chief priests to betray Jesus to them. They were delighted to hear this and promised to give him money, so he watched for an opportunity to hand Jesus over. So again, we started our reading today with Mark introducing the idea that they need a betrayer, that they need someone to help them corner Jesus. And then we move into a completely different kind of narrative. A woman anoints Jesus with what it says here, an alabaster jar made of pure nard. Now, alabaster is a semi-precious stone. In this day and age, it would have been a very expensive jar, that just the jar itself. Some people collect perfume bottles. It was the same back in these days. This was a high-end luxury good, and it was filled with pure nard, and nard was a highly expensive perfume ingredient. And this most likely would have been a family heirloom passed down from generation to generation, used sparingly, perhaps a quarter, just a dab of it at a time. Most likely in moments of like weddings and funerals, special moments. This probably would have been handed down for several generations. And the cost of this particular gift would have been in the thousands of dollars. It would have been worth, in Greek, more than 300 denarii. Now, a denarii is 1 day's wage. Can you imagine that? 300 days of work would have been what you would have had to have worked to afford this expensive jar. And this woman so firmly believes in Jesus. She so firmly loves Jesus. She so firmly is convinced of the truth of Jesus that what does she do? She takes her most precious item and she pours it out over Jesus' head. And this is an interesting contrast, isn't it? Because this is what Mark is playing with. We start with the need for a betrayer, and we end the story with Judas going to the Pharisees and the Sadducees and the religious leaders of his day to betray Jesus. And in contrast, we see this woman who takes everything she has, the most wealthy and blessed possession in her life, and she takes it and she gives it to Jesus. It's such a shocking moment that the people are like, we could have sold this. In fact, John even calls it out. He said Judas, who kept the money bag, he was the one who was most upset that she had done this. And Jesus says, don't you dare. Whenever my gospel is told, people will remember this woman and what she has done. She has anointed me for my burial. Jesus is close enough now to his crucifixion that he knows the time is fast on its way. And I want you to think about this for just a moment. Nard was very, how shall I say it, aromatic. It was very smelly. It would have stuck to his clothing. It would have stuck to his body probably for about a week. And I want you to remember that, because the image here of this pouring down on Jesus and her taking this entire jar and pouring it upon Jesus' head and washing his feet with it, that means that when Jesus went to the cross, when he was being beaten, when he was carrying the cross through the streets, when he was on the cross, he still would have been able to smell the smell of the nard on his face, on his skin. It would have followed him down the road as he was carrying the cross. In other words, as Jesus undertook his great and powerful and difficult and strugglesome burden of the cross, as he was suffering and as he was dying, he had on his very skin a memory of love, a memory of devotion, a memory of friendship. When he would gasp for air upon the cross, he would smell the pure nard and remember the woman who loved him and who gave him this gift. So what does this call us to be? Well, Mark obviously wants us not to be like Judas and to be like the woman who poured out her love and devotion to Jesus. And isn't that what we're all called to do? To be extravagant lovers of our Lord Jesus Christ. To reach out to our Lord Jesus Christ and to reach out to our community in such a loving and impactful and self-sacrificial way that people cannot help but say, that came from God. Yesterday, I was watching a picture. Jenny Brown posted it to her Facebook page. It was a video of all the Chrisman teachers riding their cars and past their students' houses and honking and the joy and the celebration. Oh, and I admit it, I became a great little weepy mess. I just thought that is the most beautiful thing. That memory that will follow those children all through their lives. And when they tell the story of the COVID-19 virus and the days when they couldn't go to school, they will talk about how their teachers got in their cars and drove past just to make them smile. Love is a powerful thing. and it comes to us, and it gives us strength in the most difficult of times. Who knows? Maybe there was a moment in that Christ event when Jesus was suffering, when he thought, why am I doing this? This hurts so bad. And then he caught a whiff of the aroma of the pure nard and remembered, oh yes, I'm doing this because I love them so very, very much. So allow me in the middle of this week to speak to you from my own heart, Pastor Michael. I just want you to know that I love you. I miss you a bunch. I wish you could be at the church and not my truly secret hideout. I hope that you're doing well, and I look forward to the days when we can meet together face to face again. In the meantime, stay safe, watch over your families, and continue to pray. And that's our lesson for today. Oh no, I think they're coming. I better go.